Hello and welcome to Serendipity Intended. My name is Tracy Ann and I am so glad that you are here. It is time for another prompt in Junk Journal January, and so I'm going to get out my Hobonichi that I'm using for my daily journal. It's also what I'm doing my prompts in, and you can see that today, day 7, is touch. So I've got my page, and before I work on the page itself, I needed to figure out what I was going to do. And I decided to look through some of my magazines and pull out some images that kind of resonated with the idea of touch. And in addition to some magazines, home magazines, I went through my little stash of pictures and I came up with 3. This one was my absolute favorite. I love the idea of touch and feeling the dirt, but I realized pretty quickly that the image was too wide for the page. I also had this one, which I thought just the idea of feeling the paint and touching the paint was kind of cool, but I didn't want to lose any of the image and it was too tall. Then I found this image, and the actors in this image are touching. So I thought, okay, I'll go with this route. Now, I really liked the idea of the light kind of coming behind these folks, and I realized that I was trimming too close to the people, that I wanted to leave a little bit of the light around them in the image as I cut it out. So I just grabbed a piece of washi and kind of repaired the cut so that I could cut just a little bit outside. You can see there a little bit of white, just to, one, help them stand out, and two, I really sort of liked that sort of ethereal glow coming from behind them. And I wanted to play with that idea in the spread. And so I kind of positioned them where I wanted them on the page, and then just kind of folded the edge over, not terribly precise, but I knew that I wanted them to sort of run off of the page. I also decided that I liked the rays that were coming from the background, but I didn't want to just paste the picture down as is. So I decided to cut some strips from those rays and then use those to kind of create my own, I guess, kind of collaged rays, sort of with the idea that there is an energy coming from these two people as a result of their touch. And then right in the middle of everything, that stink bug landed on my desk. So I had to stop and take him outside. So I trimmed off some pieces and then I just kind of placed them around, trying to position them. I didn't want them all the same length, so cutting some that were thicker and some that were thinner, and then just shifting them around until I got them where I wanted them to be. Because I didn't know where they were going to land as I cut them longer than I knew I would need, because I knew that I could always cut them shorter once I decided where they would go. And about halfway up or halfway down for the rays seemed like it made sense. So my next job was to glue those rays down. And here you can see as I glue each one down, I trim off the end that is underneath of the people. Because I realized I don't need all of that extra paper, and I was trying to keep the bulk down to a minimum. I did decide to paperclip the people in place so that they wouldn't scoot around on me, and that would make it easier to glue down each of the stripes. you decide to approach this prompt? Did you go with something similar to what I did, where there's sort of a focus on the action of touch or touching? Or did you decide to go with something that was more tactile, more the experience of the reader touching a texture on the page? I admit that was kind of the direction I was originally planning to go, but because I do have an extra goal of keeping the bulk down to a minimum, I did not go that route. I am happy though with this decision. I'm glad that I tried something that is a little different than what I normally would do, and also wasn't necessarily my first instinct or idea. I think that sometimes if we go with the idea that isn't the first one or the most obvious or the most typical, we often can learn something new or surprise ourselves with what we learned. I was all set to glue those people down, and then I thought I needed a little bit more in the background. So I grabbed some distressed ink and a stamp that looks like a postage cancellation mark. And then I stamped those wiggly lines in between each of my rays. And I'm using those 2 strips of paper to mask the rays because I didn't want to get the stamping on top of them. It's not real easy to see those squiggly lines here, and I'm sorry for that. You'll have to trust me that they are, in fact, there in the background. They're pretty subtle, but they do add a little bit of depth to the image. I had the sense that the bottom of the page felt empty, and my original thought was to use some more of that background behind them to add some visual weight to the bottom part of the page to ground them a bit, but then decided that the yellow was too much yellow, and I thought, well, maybe a book page, it's got a little bit of darker colors in it to kind of pull out the browns in the 2 people. And the off-white is just a little bit different from the page itself, which is more of a brighter white. So I'm just kind of trying to finagle a little bit what's going on here. And there's absolutely nothing precise about this process whatsoever, other than I decided to cut the bottom edge because it was going along the edge of the page, and then to tear the sides just to make them a little bit more organic feeling. Other than that, there really wasn't too much logic there. Now, I had put some registration marks originally for the 2 people so I would know where to glue them back down. And that was me just transferring those registration marks to the background paper. I love using old catalogs as a glue mat. It feels much less wasteful to use them for a glue mat rather than just tossing them into recycling. And I was trying to decide what else to do in the bottom, whether to journal maybe with a white gel pen on their bodies or to put something else there. I really wasn't sure, so I was kind of considering what my options could be while I trimmed off those raised edges. I also really wanted to get the back a little bit flatter. I don't think I succeeded. I'm gonna have to figure something out for tomorrow's prompt, I think. So I really at first thought maybe I would add a little bit of color. This was just sitting on my desk and I liked the yellow undertones and I thought color-wise it worked. And I tried a couple of times. I even inked the edges because I was thinking, yeah, I'm definitely going to do this. But then after I did that and I put it down again, I decided that I really did not like the contrast between the sort of modern looking people and rays and that floral image. So instead I went in search of a quote and I liked this one. I was originally thinking that maybe I would write it on their bodies in a gel pen, but then decided that I was just going to use the sticker and maybe use the bodies for a journaling spot later on. The sticker felt a little gray to me though, so I tried to use this particular distress ink to go over it and make it a little bit browner, but then decided that it was too light and it wasn't doing enough to change the color of the gray. The surface of the sticker was also a little bit slippery, and so that probably didn't help either. So I grabbed a slightly darker shade of ink, and that did a little better. It still wasn't quite what I was hoping for, but the next darker shade of brown that I have was entirely too dark. So I ended up just deciding to go with that. I did, however, grab that darker shade and use it on the edges just to help it pop a little bit more, give it a little bit more of a brown and warmer feel than it had originally, to connect it hopefully a little bit better to the two people. When I put stickers down and I want them to be aligned really what specifically, I like to take the corner and bend it back so I just have a little bit of the sticker with the sticky spot exposed, get it in the right place, push that sticky part down, and then peel the rest of the backing off. It's my little trick for getting things a little bit straighter. And then a little bit of black ink around the outside, which I felt like connected the people to the black writing in the background of the book page. And then also going into the date block to just make that a little bit darker and tie it into the spread itself with a little bit of colored pencil. So all in all, I'm satisfied with that. Definitely a little bit different. I hope you had a good time, and also that you make a great day. Bye.